Sophia Carter stood at the edge of the cobblestone driveway, her eyes wide with wonder as she gazed up at the grand double doors of Willow Crest Inn. The ivy-covered brick walls stretched high, a testament to the building's timeless elegance, and antique lanterns flickered gently in the soft afternoon breeze. Polished cars gleamed in the driveway, each waiting to be whisked away by attentive valets dressed in sharp uniforms. The inn wasn't just a place. It was a symbol of prestige in their small town, a legendary landmark that had captured imaginations for decades. At just 10 years old, Sophia had always admired the inn from a distance, spinning countless stories in her mind about what secrets lay beyond its grand facade. Today, she would no longer have to imagine. Dressed in her favorite yellow dress with a neatly tied white ribbon in her hair, she clutched a small leather notebook close to her chest. It was her father, James Carter, who had given her this unique opportunity. He was the new owner of Willow Crest Inn, having acquired it in a quiet but monumental business deal. Yet, rather than flaunt her status, her father had tasked her with something far more meaningful: to explore the inn anonymously, learn its inner workings, and understand what made it so special. Always respect hard work and listen to the stories of those around you, no matter their role, James had said to her. Sophia's heart fluttered with both excitement and nervousness as she pushed the heavy double doors open. The lobby was more breathtaking than she had imagined. The scent of polished wood and fresh flowers greeted her, mingling with the soft hum of activity. Above her, a grand chandelier sparkled, casting warm golden light across the marble floors. A sweeping staircase curved elegantly to the upper floors, its banisters gleaming. It was like stepping into a fairy tale. But the magic of the moment quickly dimmed when a tall man at the front desk caught sight of her. His name tag read Mr. Benson, and his piercing gaze was as sharp as the perfectly tailored suit he wore. With an air of authority that demanded attention, he addressed her in a clipped tone. "Can I help you?" he asked, his brow slightly arched as though her very presence were an inconvenience. Sophia hesitated, but then drew a steadying breath. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "I'm here to learn about the inn and maybe help out. Is there someone I could speak to about how things work?" Mr. Benson's frown deepened, his eyes narrowing. "Help out?" he repeated, his voice laced with incredulity. "We don't let children loiter here. This is a place of high standards, young lady. Perhaps you should return home and find something more suitable for someone your age." Sophia felt the sting of his words immediately. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she squared her shoulders. "I can help," she insisted, her voice firm despite the lump in her throat. "I'm very good at organizing things, and I can learn fast." Mr. Benson crossed his arms, his expression unyielding. "This isn't a playground. We don't allow just anyone to roam the inn. Please leave." His dismissive tone cut through her like a cold wind, and for a moment, Sophia stood frozen. She wanted to tell him who she was, to explain why she was there. But her father's advice echoed in her mind. "You'll learn more if you observe than if you demand." Swallowing her frustration, Sophia turned and walked out of the doors, the weight of disappointment pressing heavily on her chest. When she reached the sidewalk, she opened her notebook and carefully wrote down her first observation. Not everyone is kind to people they don't know. As she finished, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from her father. "How's your first visit?" Sophia stared at the screen for a moment before replying. Interesting. I'll tell you more when I get home. That evening, Sophia sat by her bedroom window, her gaze fixed on the glowing lights of Willow Crest Inn in the distance. From afar, it looked warm and inviting, a place where anyone would want to be. But Mr. Benson's cold demeanor had left a bitter taste in her mouth. She flipped through her notebook, thinking about the grandeur of the inn and the contrast of her encounter. The thought of going back made her stomach churn with nerves, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. One thing was clear: she wasn't ready to give up just yet. The next morning, determination replaced her hesitation. Convincing her father to drop her off near the inn again, Sophia decided to try a different approach. This time, instead of entering through the grand front doors, she slipped in through a side entrance she had noticed the day before. It was the door the staff used, a modest entryway tucked away from the main lobby. The narrow hallway smelled faintly of cleaning supplies, and the faint hum of activity guided her forward. Following the sound of soft humming, she found herself peeking into a brightly lit room where a woman was folding towels. The woman's kind face lit up in surprise when she saw Sophia standing there. "Hello there, sweetheart," the woman said, her voice warm and welcoming. "Are you lost?" Sophia shook her head. "No," she replied softly. "I'm here to learn about how the inn works. Can I help you?" The woman's name tag read Mrs. Delgado, and her gentle smile was a stark contrast to Mr. Benson's frosty demeanor. "Well, aren't you a curious one?" Mrs. Delgado said with a chuckle. "Sure, you can help me fold these towels. But don't go telling anyone. I'm not sure the managers would like it." Grinning, Sophia set her notebook down and eagerly began folding towels alongside Mrs. Delgado. As they worked, she peppered the woman with questions about her job, the guests, and the daily challenges of running an inn. Mrs. Delgado shared stories of demanding visitors, long shifts, and the simple joys of making a room feel welcoming for a weary traveler. Sophia listened intently, jotting down notes whenever something stood out. For the first time since stepping into Willow Crest Inn, she felt a spark of excitement. There was so much to learn, and she was only just beginning. Over the next several days, Sophia spent her time weaving in and out of the hidden corners of Willow Crest Inn, her notebook quickly filling with notes and observations. She began her mornings slipping through the same side door she had discovered on her first visit and would shadow the staff as they went about their day. Each moment felt like peeling back a layer of the inn's mystique, and the more she observed, the more she realized how much went unnoticed by the guests who marveled at its surface-level elegance. Sophia started her day with Mrs. Delgado in the laundry room, learning how the endless piles of sheets and towels were cleaned and neatly folded. Mrs. Delgado shared stories about the guests, some kind and understanding, others impossible to please, and the pride she felt in knowing her work added to the inn's charm. "They may not notice the fresh linens or the neatly folded towels," Mrs. Delgado said with a soft smile, "but we do it because it matters. Even the smallest details make a difference." From the laundry room, Sophia moved on to the bellhop, a young man named Aaron, who was no older than 20 but seemed to know every nook and cranny of the inn. Aaron showed her how to carry luggage efficiently, often joking that Sophia was stronger than she looked. He also spoke candidly about the guests. "Some people treat you like you're invisible," Aaron said one afternoon as they carried suitcases to a room on the second floor. "But then there are others who'll look you in the eye and thank you. Those are the ones that remind you why this job matters." Sophia scribbled furiously in her notebook, her small hands trying to keep up with the flood of insights. Her next stop was the kitchen. The moment she stepped into the bustling space, the rich aroma of spices and baked bread filled the air. The head chef, a stern but brilliant man named Chef Pierre, was hesitant to let her observe at first. "This is not a place for a child," he grumbled, his thick accent adding an extra layer of authority to his words. But Sophia's persistence won him over, and soon she was watching the chefs chop, sauté, and plate meals with a precision that bordered on art. The kitchen was a symphony of movement and sound, and Sophia found herself mesmerized by how the team worked together seamlessly. "It's not just food," Chef Pierre explained, his tone softening as he noticed Sophia's genuine interest. "It's an experience. Guests may forget what they ordered, but they'll never forget how it made them feel." Sophia nodded, writing down every word. She had never thought about food in that way before. As the days passed, Sophia grew more comfortable with the staff. They, in turn, began to open up to her. The housekeepers shared their tricks for making beds look perfect. The groundskeepers explained how they carefully tended to the gardens to maintain their beauty. Even the maintenance team showed her how they kept the inn running smoothly behind the scenes. But alongside the camaraderie and kindness, Sophia couldn't ignore the whispers she overheard. Staff spoke in hushed tones about the challenges they faced, not just from the demanding guests, but from the rigid management, particularly Mr. Benson. His rules were strict, his demeanor cold, and his lack of empathy weighed heavily on the employees. "He only cares about appearances," Aaron confided one afternoon. "As long as the guests don't complain, he doesn't care what we're going through." Sophia felt a pang of frustration every time she heard such stories. The beauty of the inn was undeniable, but she could see the cracks in its foundation. It wasn't just about the ivy-covered walls or the sparkling chandeliers. The people working tirelessly behind the scenes were what made Willow Creston special, and yet they were often overlooked, dismissed, or treated unfairly. One afternoon, as Sophia walked through the lobby, she spotted Mr. Benson scolding a housekeeper over a minor oversight. The housekeeper's shoulders drooped under the weight of his sharp words, and Sophia's heart ached at the scene. She wanted to march up to him and tell him to stop, but she held herself back. Her father's advice lingered in her mind. Observe first, understand before you act. That evening, Sophia sat by the window in her room, reflecting on everything she had learned. Her notebook was nearly full, each page a mix of observations, questions, and ideas. The inn was a place of beauty, but it was also a place of imbalance. Some guests were treated like royalty, while others were barely acknowledged. Some staff members were praised, while others were reprimanded for the slightest mistake. She flipped back to the first page of her notebook, where she had written, "Not everyone is kind to people they don't know." The words felt heavier now, layered with the stories she had heard and the people she had met. The next morning, Sophia woke up with a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't sure how she could make a difference, but she knew she had to try. When she arrived at the inn that day, she decided to observe Mr. Benson more closely. She watched how he interacted with the staff and guests, noting every detail. While his demeanor with the guests was polished and professional, his attitude toward the staff was often dismissive and impatient. Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that something needed to change, and for the first time, she allowed herself to think about what that change might look like. As the week progressed, Sophia's notebook became her constant companion, its pages brimming with observations and insights about Willow Creston. Every day, she uncovered more about the inner workings of the inn, its strengths, its flaws, and the silent struggles of its staff. She had grown attached to the people who kept the inn running, from Mrs. Delgado with her gentle kindness to Chef Pierre with his passion for perfection. But no matter how much she learned, the tension between Mr. Benson and the staff was impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as Sophia walked through the sunlit gardens, she noticed Aaron, the bellhop, sitting on a bench, his head bowed. She approached him cautiously, her yellow dress swishing softly against the grass. "Are you okay, Aaron?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Aaron looked up, his expression weary. "Just another tough day," he admitted. "Mr. Benson wasn't happy with the way I greeted a guest earlier. Said I wasn't polished enough." Sophia frowned. "But you're always so polite. Everyone says you're great at your job." Aaron sighed. "It doesn't matter. To him, I'll always be just the bellhop." Sophia felt a surge of frustration. She had seen firsthand how hard Aaron worked, how much he cared about making guests feel welcome. Yet, his efforts were dismissed with cold criticism. It wasn't fair. The more Sophia observed, the more determined she became to make a difference. She couldn't stand by and let people like Aaron and Mrs. Delgado be treated unfairly. But she also knew she had to be smart about how she approached the situation. That evening, Sophia shared her observations with her father. Sitting across from him at the dining table, she opened her notebook and began reading aloud the stories and insights she had collected. James Carter listened intently, his expression growing more serious with every word. "I've noticed something," Sophia said finally, her voice steady. "The inn is beautiful, but the way people are treated isn't always fair. Some guests get special treatment, while others are ignored. Some staff are praised, but most are overworked and overlooked. And Mr. Benson," she hesitated, then continued, "he's making things worse." James leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed in thought. "You've done a remarkable job, Sophia," he said after a long pause. "You've seen things that even I might have missed. Now, tell me, what do you think we should do about it?" Sophia blinked, surprised by the question. She hadn't expected her father to ask for her input so directly. Taking a deep breath, she replied, "I think we need to make changes from the inside out. It's not just about the rules or the policies. It's about the people. The staff needs to feel valued, and the guests need to see that everyone here matters." "I want to help." James smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "Then let's make it happen." The next morning, Sophia arrived at the inn with a new sense of purpose. This time, she didn't slip through the side door or quietly observe from the shadows. Instead, she walked straight into the dining hall, where the staff were gathered for their morning meeting. Standing at the front of the room, Sophia felt small in comparison to the grand space and the curious eyes of the staff. But she straightened her shoulders and spoke with confidence. "Hello, everyone," she began, her voice steady but warm. "My name is Sophia Carter, and my father is the new owner of Willow Creston." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Even Mr. Benson, standing at the back with his arms crossed, raised an eyebrow in surprise. "For the past week," Sophia continued, "I've had the privilege of working alongside many of you. I've folded towels with Mrs. Delgado, carried luggage with Aaron, and learned about the incredible meals Chef Pierre and his team create. You've all taught me so much, and I'm grateful for everything you do to make this place special." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "But I've also noticed things that need to change. I've seen how some of you are treated unfairly. I've heard the whispers about how rigid the rules are and how little appreciation is shown for your hard work. That's not how it should be." The room fell silent as Sophia's words hung in the air. "I believe that everyone here deserves respect," she said firmly. "No matter your role, you're all a part of what makes Willow Creston special. And I think we can work together to make this place not just beautiful, but fair and welcoming for everyone, staff and guests alike." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mrs. Delgado stepped forward, her kind smile lighting up the room. "We're with you, Sophia," she said warmly. One by one, the staff began nodding in agreement. Aaron gave her a thumbs up, and even Chef Pierre managed a small, approving nod. At the back of the room, Mr. Benson's expression remained unreadable, but Sophia thought she saw a flicker of something, perhaps respect, in his eyes. This was just the beginning, Sophia knew. There would be challenges ahead, and change wouldn't come overnight. But as she looked around the room, at the faces of the people who made the inn come alive, she felt a surge of hope. Together, they could build something truly extraordinary, a place where everyone, regardless of their role or background, felt valued and respected. And for Sophia, that was the true magic of Willow Creston.